Welcome, Jennifer. LaMell Goldstone here on this Facebook Live for Inside the Skev. Thanks for joining. And
Thank you for having me.
it's a it's a pleasure to see you, but not like this. So these are interesting times for us here in the real estate industry. And, I've been having I had Dave Rahia on from the Skokie Hospital last night to talk about the hospital's response to what's going on with coronavirus and in the immediate community. I'm going to be having some other people on to talk about, mental health, financial planning, several other people I hope to line up soon. But, one thing that hits home big time to me is real estate. And you work with a lot of my clients here, and the two of us have been talking quite a bit to try to figure out what's going to happen. Let's say the title companies close. What should buyers do? So I just wanted to talk to you, the expert, and see what your opinion is and what have you seen so far?
So, starting 2 nights ago, Chicago Title sent out an email recommending that only essential parties go to closings, meaning really just buyers.
Yeah.
Sellers can pre-sign documents. They asked that no attorneys, agents, lenders, or any non-essential parties really come to the closing. So at that point, what I did in my practice is, obviously, when I represent a seller, if we've got the docs pre-signed, we can send those to Chicago Title in advance.
Right.
And for the buyers, I've been sending them alone and doing things like Facebook. I'm doing one through Zoom today, and not attending. I'm trying to honor those requests because I feel that makes people most comfortable in these unprecedented times.
So how does that work if you're FaceTiming with a client? Like you're just going over the documents with them and they're signing everything, or?
Yeah, so what the title companies have been doing is scanning to me the full loan package in the order that they're handing it to the client. And then I'm FaceTiming the client and going through page by page, explaining just as if I was sitting next to them, as I would in a closing. We go through the closing statement line by line so to make sure that they understand all of the figures. And then we go through all the documents.
And do they actually sign it and scan it back to you, or you sign it for them?
No, at this point, the clients are going to the title companies and they're signing.
Oh, they're there. They're there. Okay.
The issue is that some of these things can be signed by DocuSign, but right now in Illinois, a deed must be signed in front of a notary as well as a mortgage. And until that changes, you have to be signing in front of a notary.
Right. One of the things that exists in some other states is e-closings, where you can have a remote notary who's FaceTiming with the person signing it, and then they can digitally notarize it. I've been in touch with people at the Chicago Association of Realtors who are talking with people at the state level to get legislation passed, because I think it's in the state Senate right now. So we can hopefully get that done, because obviously no one knows how long this is going to go for. And if we can't actually, if there can't actually be a notary in person, that might be a good solution.
I mean, if Illinois would pass something like that, I think that would make a lot of borrowers and buyers more comfortable.
Yeah.
Everybody's just a little concerned about how to social distance themselves when they have to sit in a room with somebody else.
Right. And then how do you get keys to them, and how do you exchange checks? I mean, I guess through the mail, or as long as we have that?
Yes, I've been doing it by FedEx.
Okay.
So I have three closing. I have a closing today. I have 3 on Friday. I'm planning to overnight my packages to the title company, and then they'll FedEx the checks to my office.
Wow. Have you ever experienced anything similar to this in your career?
No, this is unprecedented. I have done FaceTime closings in the past when I've had logistical problems, when a closing's been rescheduled and I have a full day downtown and I had a closing, for example, in Naperville. Well, I couldn't make it all work for the timing and for the best interest of the client to keep it going. So I had done FaceTime closings in the past. So it wasn't totally foreign to me, but it's definitely unusual. I'm someone that likes to be at the closing. I feel that when you're at the closing, everybody's focused on that for that hour and a half. Whereas when people are at their desk, they're answering emails and they're doing other things, and it doesn't happen as efficiently.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, this is not ideal. What advice do you have if someone, let's first start with buyers. Let's say you still want to buy a property now, as long as we can still show properties. And, how do you protect a buyer who wants to go under contract, but they may not be able to meet that closing date if everything does shut down with closings?
Right. So that's a really good question. In every contract that I'm getting in now through the attorney modification letters, I am adding language to my letters saying that if the closing or any other dates are delayed because of the coronavirus, because of a 14-day required quarantine, because of any of the parties, that won't be a default under the contract. In addition, if the lender has a major slowdown, or right now they're slammed, so things are kind of taking a little bit longer. If we can't get appraisals done, those types of things, that it's not a default for my buyer. The goal here in my mind is to delay. I don't want people to terminate. I want people to say, look, we're going to get through this, and let's just cooperate and work together to get through it. And I think delaying closing versus terminating a contract is the better route.
Right. I mean, and from the seller's perspective, it makes logical sense to allow for these types of, addendums to the contract, right?
Yes, I have not gotten a lot of pushback from seller's attorneys. So far, everybody's agreed to the language that I've put in my letter. Um, I think sellers have got to realize that it's a buyer's market right now, because the pool of buyers, I think, is a little bit limited because of where we're at. There's sellers that don't want um, buyers and potential buyers in their home. I think you had sent me something about the touchless open house.
Right.
So we're trying to get creative about how we can still market properties and still move.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's a matter of, if I have a client who's selling, if they want people in their property
Mhm.
and to start with. And, I think some people would rather just move out if they have the ability to do so, and then just let people come in. In my company, we're talking, the advice is that just put a property on a lockbox.
Mhm.
People who don't need to be there, don't be there. 3D tours, everything where it can be, where you can keep up this social distancing, but still sell property. And as a buyer, I've had people who are in self quarantine right now because they came in contact with people with coronavirus. So
Right.
I've offered, I'll go and, FaceTime with you or whatever app, to video chat so people can see it. But yeah, I definitely think it can be much more advantageous if you're still, if you're a buyer right now, to be able to take advantage of the situation, in addition to the low interest rates.
Exactly. I mean, interest rates are really low, um, and that's really great for buyers.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen personally that it's been a pretty busy season so far. I mean, have you been pretty busy up until this point?
I have been slammed. I was really optimistic that this is going to be one of my best years yet until this happened. I have, I think, 25 closings scheduled to be in the next 4 weeks, or on the calendar in the next 4 weeks. That's pretty normal for this time of year to do about, I do somewhere between 30 and 50 a month during this time of year. I'm not seeing as much new work come in as I would like, but I did get 3 or 4 new contracts in this week, so we're working through it.
Yeah. And what about like going into your office or your staff? How is that working?
So Fox Rothschild has gone to uh, remote access, and we have a lot of uh, I don't know all the technical terms, but we have procedures in place for remote access so that it's still protecting clients' um, information. And my paralegal is working from his home, and my secretary is working from her home, and we're emailing and making sure that we're communicating that way. And I think as of yesterday, we were all up and running and able to move forward. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing business as usual. We're taking it day by day, obviously,
Right.
and we're doing as much as we can remotely. But I'm trying to keep everything moving.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I saw that was pretty interesting yesterday is that I got an email from the village of Skokie, that I
Mhm.
forwarded to you, where they are basically shutting down Village Hall. And one of the things that is very important at Village Halls around the area is that you may have to get a transfer stamp.
Yeah.
And so in Skokie, I saw in there that you have to email the village clerk if you want to request a transfer stamp. I mean, how have you seen anything else from other communities? I mean, how are you handling that logistically?
Right. As the villages start closing, that is going to be a hurdle. The recorder's office in Cook County has gone to basically e-recording only. And so that is a concern. As of now, we're still able to get the stamp, we can still close. As long as the recorder's office is still open, Chicago Title is still ensuring that title is passing properly, we can still close. As long as the banks are still open and able to wire funds, we can still do our closing.
Right. One thing that I thought was really interesting is you just forwarded me an email before we started here that, and I'll pull it up, but basically it's this one company is doing drive-by closings. Can you explain what that means?
Well, I read it just before this started as well. It's actually Greater Illinois Title is a company that I also work with. And they are trying to get it passed where they can have the notary and borrower have very limited contact. Again, the idea here is to make the consumer comfortable with the social distancing that's going on. They're suggesting that they can drive to your home, drop the documents, similar to like a pizza delivery guy, right?
Right,
And
for a closing.
right, and then you can sign, and then it can still move forward. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea behind it. Um, I mean,
yeah,
I
I've
think
got the email
I
up
think
here
it's
on the screen
clever.
right now. Yeah, it's very clever. I think that, people, what I find so fascinating here is that people are really, being very innovative in how they conduct their business. And I think that, you have to be
Yes.
in order to be able to get through this. And, um, I feel like once we're through this, it's going to be, as long as it doesn't go too long, I feel like we're going to have the biggest busy time we've ever seen in the summer or the fall, whenever it's over.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we're hopefully taking all the right steps to flatten that curve, and I'm certainly trying to do my part. And the hope is that in I mean, originally it was a few weeks. Now I'm hoping, maybe it's 8 or 10 weeks that we'll be able to be back to normal.
Yeah,
I'm reading a little bit out of Wuhan that they're getting back to normal. So that was about 3 months. That's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, I hope. Um, and I think we just have to keep being creative to keep the markets moving and keep business as normal as possible.
yeah. Do you think, or let me ask you, I mean, did your company have anything in place to be able to deal with this beforehand, like any type of like emergency plan?
Well, all the attorneys have laptops, so we can work remotely at any given time. And it was just the staff that doesn't have that ability, and we very quickly made that happen.
Yeah,
So one of the advantages of being at a firm like Fox Rothschild is that they're on it. They're monitoring it, and they're taking care of making sure that we can operate. And
yeah,
that's what the most important thing is that we can continue to service our clients and walk them through this process. It's new for all of us, and uh, we're taking all the right steps. I think Fox Rothschild has done a really good job from that perspective. um,
right. No, I mean, I found that you've been a comfort to me during this process because we are working on several transactions together right now, and and constantly in touch. And you have ideas, and I'm sharing ideas, and we're trying to make the best of it so we could best serve our clients together. And I think that's super important that everyone, I find that just like a lot of people are trying to band together, figure out how to help each other, and make it as best as possible. Um,
Yeah. I've been telling people there are two kind of sides to where I'm coming from. One is the legal and technicalities under these contracts in terms of how we have to perform and what we're doing in good faith. And the other is the practical side. Like you said, we've got to work together. So I believe the best approach to sellers is, look, my buyer still wants to move forward. Let's figure out a way we can delay this till everybody's comfortable. I think that's a better approach.
Yeah. Do you think that it's best if you're a seller or a buyer to try to bump up the closing date if possible at this point?
I mean, at this point, I'm doing it in order of, I'm preparing my files like I would every other time. We are trying to get the ones, usually we send out our closing packages 7 to 10 days before closing. My assistants, Bob and I, are trying to get the packages out this week so that at least all the sellers will have pre-signed, and then we can slowly get those closed. The issue for me at this point is lenders. We need the lenders to get the clear to closes so we can get to the closing table. And the lenders are overwhelmed, and because interest rates were low, they were overwhelmed before, and now they're overwhelmed even more. So
Right.
every time, I mean, you know, every time I'm sending out emails, I'm getting auto responses. Please note, we have a high volume. We're working this through. So a lot of that's going to depend on the lender. If it's a cash deal and we can close sooner, I'm all for it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's key. If it's just so, because the title company's open now and things may change. We do have some people watching on here, and I was wondering if anyone has any questions, and if you do, feel free to comment, and then we can see if we can answer them. If not, that's okay too. Yeah, I mean, do you think that after this is all over, this changes the industry?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I hope not, because I think that, the way the realtors and attorneys kind of work hand in hand together to get these deals to the table is a really good system.
I think it shows our value right now by being able to figure this out to make it happen.
I think that's true too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's the key, is that you've got to have, these buyers and sellers have to have a good team behind them on the residential level and on the commercial level. We've got to be able to work together to get through it.
Yeah. And you work on commercial deals as well, right?
I do. I do a lot of multifamily. I do some industrial, and other types of leasing work. But any really transactional based real estate need is what I kind of focus on.
I assume it's been affecting that as well at this point.
Yes. One of my closings yesterday was a 6 flat. It was fully leased and went pretty smoothly. We did have one little hiccup. The borrower was in New York, and he was in an area of New York that had been hit hard by the coronavirus. So there were definitely other precautions we had to take to get the closing documents signed, but we were able to handle it remotely, and between FedEx and, like I said, the notary and the cooperation of all the parties, we were able to get it done yesterday.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more. I'm
happy to do it, and I think this is great. And I think the goal here is that we need to work together. Let's stay optimistic, and I think we have to take it day by day.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a deep breath, everyone.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on here talking about this. I don't see any questions from the audience right now, but I will share this. It will be on the Facebook page. You might be watching it on YouTube. You might be watching it on Fox Rothschild, whatever it may be. And I also am going to be creating a section of skevinson.com that will all be for the coronavirus updates and how it affects our community. Stay on for just a minute, but we're going to be signing off here from Facebook. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.